Hello and a very special welcome to all of you watching this special report on TVRI World about the World Water Forum that is happening right now in Bali. Now, the 10th World Water Forum 2024 is currently taking place in Bali until the 25th of May 2024. And this World Water Forum 2024 will discuss four principal discussions, namely water conservation, clean water and sanitation, food and energy security, as well as natural disaster mitigation.
It is expected that these 4 points of discussion will provide results in establishing a Center of Excellence on Water and Climate Resilience, or COE, mainstreaming integrated water resources management or integrated water resources management on small islands, determining World Lake Day or Lake Day World, and the inclusion of concrete action in the form of a list of activities as a follow-up to WWF 2024.
Now, in addition to the main agenda, there will be 59 side events at the 2024 World Water Forum. One of them is a trilateral meeting between China, Japan, and South Korea to discuss climate change and development of resilient water infrastructure.
Now, President Joko Widodo has opened the World Water Forum or WWF meeting this morning. And in addition, leaders will visit TAHURA mangrove forest this afternoon. So here with us, I'm Siska Becker.
And I'm Luisa Kusnandar. Let's start our special report on the 10th World Water Forum leaders' site visit to the TAHURA mangrove forest in Bali. Now, joining us in the studio this evening is Mbak Dina Prapto, the international relation expert to synergy policies. Thank you so much for being here on our special report, and we are discussing about the World Water Forum that is happening currently in Bali. Now, first of all, Mbak Dina, water is the main issue here, but I would like to ask you, how did water become such a major worldly issue?
Water has become an important issue actually since around early 2000. And way before that even, many countries have understood water as a very critical geopolitical issues. Number one, because water sources are usually surrounded by not just one country, but several countries, rivers or lakes or even waterfalls. And all of this affect not only health, food, such as for irrigation, for planting, but also for energy. And also for when you don't treat it well, there may be natural disasters affecting the people in the surrounding areas. And it did happen in the past, how a wrong placement of dam has created a disaster. It happened in China, for instance. So water is indeed part of the United Nations agenda. Back in 2011, there was a UN resolution, United Nations resolution, saying that basically the world needs to appreciate the importance on water cooperation. And every year since 2013, there will be a World Water Day. So this is to mark the importance of water. And also perhaps it's also important to add here, the water is very important and 70% of the earth is water. Yes. Not everybody has access to clean water, especially for livelihood.
Okay, ironically.
Ironically.
A very sad fact indeed.
So this unevenness requires us to think about cooperation.
All right. Now, before we talk more about the issues facing humanity in terms of water management, sustainability, maybe we can talk more about WWF first as an international forum. It was first established in 1997. Right. It was held every 3 years until now for the first time in Southeast Asia. Indonesia, Bali is the host of the World Water Forum. Now, so far, what do you think of the forum, Mbak Dina? Is Indonesia doing enough to be at the forefront of a country that truly cares about sustainable water management?
I think to see the importance of a forum like this is to look at least at two dimensions. Okay. First is the dimension of keeping the agenda floating internationally and making sure it's a priority to member states. Why is this important? Because number one, financing remains challenging. And number two, politics remains challenging. So even if you have the money, you have to deal with the politics that has never been easy. Okay. And then the second dimension is the practical level, which is about how you adopt technologies that can more evenly distribute water resources. Yes. And then problems such as pollution. It is either it's from industry waste or household waste, or even activities, economic activities such as pesticides, plantation. Yeah. That requires lots of research at the technical levels. And then what I mentioned earlier, for instance, the development of dam. Okay. And on the one hand, it's very important, but if you designed it in a certain, inappropriate situation and without thinking about the, consent from people in the surrounding areas or the countries in the surrounding river area, then there will be a problem. So at the political level and at the technical levels, those are important.
Very tricky.
Very
tricky, and actually it's very complicated. Like to think about water is simple, but I mean just to sustain it and in a world level, it becomes really complicated. Now, Mbak Dina, it was mentioned in the opening ceremony today even that water, as quoted, water is politics, water is hydropolitics. Yes. And the World Water Forum has been going for 10 times now. This is the 10th World Water Forum, the first time being in Marrakesh. How has the World Water Forum bring results so far? Do you think it has been effective to give solutions to all of our world water-related problems?
In my observation, it has been very slow.
Very slow.
Very slow. But maybe if we don't talk about it, it will be even worse.
I see.
So this is not, as you said, it's not an easy process to digest by governments, and you need to be wary too, because every time there are changes of governments, usually the issue of water never comes through. People talk about, how many jobs you create, or how much money you have in your pockets, but you never ask about water. You think about water as something taken for granted. Yes. But for countries that are water stressed, or they are limited water resources, such as in arid areas or in Africa, in Middle East, this is a serious problem since 1940s even. We saw how many countries have gone into war and try to solve it through military forces because they cannot deal with it nicely on the table. So we are lucky in the Asia that we have more abundance of water, but that doesn't mean this will continue on. So acceleration of cooperation and understanding also how we should put this at the very high of priority is required, I think.
Okay, before we continue our discussion with Ibu Dina, let's now get the live feed from the site there as delegates are coming in for the visit at the mangrove forest. Now, this is one of the planned visits. It's been in the itinerary since the very beginning. We see President Joko Widodo now looking much more casual than he did this morning.
The big part of the World Water Forum is over for the opening ceremony. And now they're here at the TAHURA mangrove forest, where all the other delegates will also be joining President Jokowi this evening.
Now, while we see who's coming in next, maybe we can continue our conversation with Ibu Dina. Now, you've mentioned one of the biggest issue in water management, and that is equal access. I think that was also mentioned repeatedly by the state leaders this morning at the opening ceremony, that equal access by all countries is needed to truly have justice in water management. So what do you think, what sort of strategies should be proposed to ensure equitable access to water resources for all communities, particularly in developing nations or wherever water is scarce, like you mentioned before?
This has been a lot of experiments on this. So to answer your question, it's not a straightforward answer because there has been several models tried. Some of them work better than others.
Okay.
Let me say, for instance, number one is to make sure that the countries affected or depending on one water source should sit together and think about how they split cost of managing the water source. Okay. But turns out, like I would like to take the example of Great Mekong River.
Okay.
You know, Mekong River is such a big source of water, not just for one country, but there are Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and the most important part at the very top is China, because the source is actually in China. So if you talk about it at the negotiation table, it looks as simple as you sit together and then split the cost among all these countries.
If you want to put it simply that way.
Put it simply that way.
Okay.
But again, it doesn't translate easily at the implementation level because these countries are located in different elevation, right? So countries there are at the top, at the more higher elevation, would need to be more responsible, you think, right? First, number one, they don't create dam that would limit the flow of water to the downstream, and don't dispose waste to the downstream area. But economic activities, you can never control. Sometimes there are issues, you give permits to investors, and then yada, 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 you have a weakness in terms of enforcement and all. And then, you cannot, countries at the lower stream will face challenges. And then they talk about cost, then who should pay the most cost?
I see.
One of the model that was implemented, like for instance in the Greater Mekong area, is that they want the distribution of the cost to be countries with the bigger population pay more.
I see.
But Thailand was among the country in Southeast Asia who has to pay more, said that, at the end of the day, they don't benefit because they're at the lower stream and they still have to treat the water more because countries in the upstream are not treating it well. And they don't spend money much because they're less, less well off in terms of economy. But then what's their responsibility? Because if everything needs to be treated at the downstream, then that's a problem. That's just one example. And then if you have countries that are industrializing so fast, like China, for instance, just last year, China announced the development of the greatest dam in the history, and that causes fear to Tibet and to India because it's the biggest waterfall, very high, and turns out that they are going to build a dam over it. So everybody start to worry, not only because there will be consequences economically, but because to some communities, this is considered sacred place. And then there's concerns about biodiversity. If you put a dam over it, something will change in terms of diversity. So that kind of issues. So at the political level, you may not be inclusive enough to put everything on the table, and then whatever formula, there will be some kind of shortage. So it continuously needs evaluation, agreement, and then research will be very highly necessary to monitor the process and find the right formula.
Now, Ibu Dina, just now you mentioned these are all the water-related problems in the political level, but I'm just wondering, among all the water issues out there, what seems to be the most crucial issue that needs to be addressed at the World Water Forum?
I think in industrial activities, economic activities, everybody is accelerating economic activities now. Not only it's part of the competition, some even see great power competition. that will bring acceleration of consequences, negative ones, to those who are, just at the skirmishes of the issue, just at the ferry. So economic activities, as I mentioned, if you want to accelerate the number of, becoming the producer of food, for instance, then you need herbicides or pesticides to produce. And most of the time, studies have shown those wastes are not properly treated. If it doesn't end in the water, it usually ends in the soil. So that's one aspect. And then fabrics, what do you mean fabrics? Factories, factories, different kind of factories, big industries. Number one, they dig water. They have the capacity, money to dig deeper into the, create well that's very deep. And that would take away the resources for people in the living areas. We've seen how cases in Indonesia, like the development of cement industry, for instance, right?
Yeah.
In Central Java has created dryness across the area where people live. So not to mention, clothing business.
Yes.
And then
all sorts of industries actually that
all sorts of
hampers
industries.
the environment.
Yes. So
and causes water pollution. I think water pollution is also
water
one
pollution.
of the
Right.
biggest issue, right?
And then one of the issues that I noticed become the attention in Indonesia is reported by the Ministry of Health, which is the sanitation problem. Though more Indonesians now have access to hygienic sanitation, one of the problems is that people do not seal properly their septic tank.
I see.
So people, especially in the rural areas, are very prone to E. coli and different kind of bacteria infection because of this. Just recently, an area in Pasuruan, a bathing place, tempat pemandian Umbulan, was closed because they found out that there are so many E. coli in the tempat pemandian, in the bathing place. So it shows how it's not just about knowledge, but how you transfer that knowledge to the people, and they standardize the development activities, and making sure there are proper monitoring, so that whoever practice businesses, they do it properly according to the standard.
Okay. Now, one of the other topics that has come up quite frequently, especially among talks between experts during the WWF here in Bali, is that of transboundary water management and cooperation between countries, especially when we take into account the geopolitical tensions that is happening all around the world, the crisis in Ukraine, the crisis in Gaza. You also have the standing off between US and China, and that all affects actually water security right now. Now, what do you think of that, Ibu Dina?
Water for areas that are very water stressed is very much a high politics issue. You actually die for it because the government, oftentimes they become hopeless, helpless in doing so. I would like to give the example from the case of the relations between Jordan, Syria, and Israel.
Okay.
These three countries, since the 40s, they fight over Galilee Lake, which is part of the Jordan River. And they, if they can manage it peacefully, like Greater Mekong, which is relatively peaceful in my view compared to this Middle East problem, you can see that there will be less tension. But the problem here is that some countries are willing to deploy power that are very excessive to get what they want. So they actually show force to demonstrate that they deserve to get more water. And if the case in Asia, usually they build dam, here they actually built closure to make sure that those at the lower end will not get anything. And that can be a trigger to war just
Okay.
because of that.
Say water would become power play.
Yes.
Becomes a way to dominate.
A way to dominate
another country.
Yes, and we now witness the case of Palestine.
Yeah.
Palestine issue from the very beginning, it also includes water.
Yes.
Areas in the West Bank actually has been very fertile. It was the area. It's a higher end. I've been there. I saw how fertile it can be with lemon trees and lots of fruit trees, vegetations, quite green.
Okay.
But because it was controlled by the PLO, by the Palestinian Authority, the Israeli turned off the water access.
I see.
Like literally
Literally
turned
turned
off.
off because the pipes,
Yeah.
again, pipes, technology, and also this is very, very much, you want to say political, but there's something more to it. At the technical level, if you don't have all the pipings necessary to ensure that you have access, then what do you do? So, yes, geopolitically, it can be very challenging for countries with water stress situation.
Now, with that that we have discussed, I'm just wondering, like, how do the international organizations as well as the NGOs can play a role in cooperating and coordinating among these countries with water-related issues then?
Some of the things that international organizations have organized is a model of transparency.
Okay.
So transparency of how the water is being used, how many population actually need access to water, and then start negotiating on the kind of models that can be developed, agreed by the conflicting parties or the parties of concern, to make sure that everybody has the access that they need. So there has been some models of public financing, because I need to highlight that public financing.
Public financing.
It has been very big, but it has been very challenging. If the economy is getting tough, especially at the global level, usually that project will get forgotten.
Off, yeah.
Less of a priority. Why I say that? Because number one, if you have multilateral cooperation, first and foremost, you have to understand, okay, we agree that we have to take care of this issue together, but then you need to contribute. From where? From the state budget. If the state budget and the fiscal space is limited, then you have less of a contribution to the program. And then number two, loans. There has been international organizations such as the World Bank, ADBs, and you name it, African development banks and all. They basically provide loans for countries who cannot afford with their state budget to borrow and then pay at the longer term, But the challenge is, again, people will ask, why do you loan money for something like this? And because the water in general, people can still drill from down below. Some countries think it's not necessary to have loans. Loans is very politically challenging for some countries. Technical assistance. Some countries provide technical assistance. Nowadays, the EU, for instance, European Union, provides many kinds of programs for technical assistance. But oftentimes, this become a shield for, mask for a program to sell products. So that they can either desalinate water or pump water from somewhere. And that once people realize it, they become apathical to that idea.
Maybe even somewhat suspicious. Is
Somewhat
there like
suspicious.
an agenda?
What's the agenda behind
this
this
offer?
Yeah, on this offer. Fees to the polluters. As appealing as it is, you can imagine businesses are not very happy about it, right? Especially when they are labeled polluters, right?
I see.
They have to be responsible to pay more because they potentially emit, waste. Now, usually the problem, the way to solve it is to create CSR problem. CSM program. But corporate social responsibility, let's just say the case of Indonesia, right? In the case of Indonesia, CSR program, cannot be fully controlled, let alone you cannot instruct companies, you have to do this. It has to come from themselves, right? And in the law, it's allowed. It's up to the companies to decide what to do, what program, which area, and all. And so,
do we need stricter laws, Budina, to ensure that these corporations don't play by their own rules and actually?
I think at the end of the day, we should.
Okay.
Because the problem about industrial activity is lack of monitoring and lack of capacity from the state also to provide many of the resources that the private sector actually need to fulfill. Let's just say if they need clean water from the ground, the rules are there, right? If you dig deeper, then you need to pay taxes, bigger taxes. But who monitor that? You know, if we want to be more serious about this, I think stricter enforcement is needed.
Or maybe a specific council or monitoring body to ensure that these laws and regulations are being implemented and used accordingly. Would that work?
In the case of Europe, they make a very, tiered process from down at the sub-district level. So there's district council monitoring them.
So there's already a hierarchy.
Yes, there's a hierarchy
for this water management. Okay, that could be an inspiration probably for other countries.
Right.
Because I think that's one of the objectives of the World Water Forum, to share ideas and knowledge and experiences on how to tackle water-related issues. Now, in terms of mitigation strategies for natural disasters, do you think Indonesia can offer something on the table for our own experiences on how to integrate water management into a broader climate change adaptation and especially natural disaster mitigation?
I think one of the things that Indonesia can contribute is the fact that we are prone to natural disasters, so we tend to be very careful when giving permit to dig and create dams. And luckily, I think the nature is with us, the fortune is with us, even though the situation is tough. But we are lucky because we don't have to share water sources with other countries.
Because we're abundant of it.
We're abundant
in
of
Indonesia,
it, and we are island country, right? Except perhaps in parts of Papua and parts of Kalimantan, right? And even then, so long as we preserve the forest and the highlands, then we can manage to have that better. There's one concern though for me in the case of Indonesia. Population growth is pretty high.
Can you explain more on that? Like how does that impact our water resources?
More people need more water for food, for even for bathing, for drinking, and for even for our waste we need water, right?
I think it is happening actually in Jakarta right now with the increase of the population, more demand for clean water, and then subsequently there's a lot of problems emerging, including the sinking of the ground of Jakarta, sea level is rising, and then clean water is decreasing. So multifaceted problem when we talk about the increase of population.
Yeah, because once you have an increase of population, number one, the people itself would need more water. Number two, if we cannot, for some areas, like let's say North Jakarta, right? Water cannot be provided or not enough if you provide it through the public companies, right?
Yes.
So people need to buy from private vendors, right? And to them it's very expensive, and of course they're from low-income families, most of them. So it's too expensive. So what's the consequence of that? They would reduce the use of water.
I see.
So less sanitation, less hygiene, and all. And this affects the children, affects the health of the population. So that's for the dense area. For the less dense area, the part I mentioned like Kalimantan and Papua, I think my concern is about the expansion of housing areas or business areas. we don't have consistent policy in terms of management of land use. How many percent do we want to conserve? Yes, we have ideas to conservation of forests and all, but I see more openings of housing permits, right?
Yes.
Construction of housing. That's the issue.
And that's going to be a bigger issue in the future, right?
That's right. Yeah. If more and more populate areas,
Yeah.
and even the houses are not well monitored in terms of their quality and standards. Again, the waste from the household is not managed. Then you create more dense area, just like in Jakarta, somewhere.
Yes.
Where it can be a preserved area, much betterly managed than in Jakarta. That's I really look forward actually to if they have something more, like more aha moment in Bali.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear what sort of solutions are being offered by the stakeholders that are attending the World Water Forum. But a lot of talk is about the financing. As you said, Budina, financing is a major issue to ensure access to clean water can happen everywhere around the world. Now, in Indonesia itself, I think Minister Luhut bin Sarpanjaitan have stated as well that we are looking forward to a lot of investments coming into Indonesia because of the World Water Forum. I think there's already MOU signed between Indonesia and China and UAE. Now, how do we ensure, though, with these investments coming in, that they still go in line with natural sustainability, with the preservation of the environment, to make sure that sustainability in environment and also sustainability in economic developments goes hand in hand?
Indeed, the devil is in the detail. More investment, okay, that's check, check number one. But then what's in it for us, right? What's actually in it for us? I'm sure it's not just the money coming into our country, but what project, where?
Yes.
That's my big question.
Okay,
where?
so location is essential. Yeah.
Location is essential. Yeah. I don't know, I don't want to jump into a conclusion, but I wonder if one of these target area will be the IKN, right? The new capital.
Nusantara City.
The Nusantara area, because it's used as a eco city model, right?
Yes.
Right.
So I really hope that if it's really an eco city project, then you can see a much more sustainable water management, more modern, all the pipings and all, and people are no longer allowed to just drill individually to their houses, so that everybody can regulate and they manage, they can monitor, how many cubic of water every individual or every household consume. And therefore you predict and then you plan and you can budget properly.
Yeah.
Because investment is just a start, right? You don't stop just one-time money. You expect that continuous cooperation.
It needs to be sustained
responsibly.
responsibly.
And it's very exciting to think about Nusantara City being a very high technology city, and they are saying a lot of green economy and blue economy is being in plan. Now, Ibu Dina, what innovative technologies or approaches are being promoted to improve water conservation then?
What kind of technology? The technology, well, some of the technology that I know includes like water salination, what do you call it? Salination. So because a lot of big cities, they, especially in Indonesia, they also experience the seeping of water from the ocean, right, to the drinking water. Some countries like Singapore, for instance, I'm sure they also attend the World Water Forum. They have some, for many years, they actually have discussed this through ASEAN meeting as well, one that I have attended in the past. The example of how they use every single drop of water in Singapore back. So they use salination, and then they have a pools of processed water, and then they send it to houses, and then all the waste from households return back to the government, and then they process it again, treat again, and then use again. So it's a very efficient way of using the water.
This is just in Singapore, or is it implemented in other countries in the world?
Some of the smaller countries, they have used it. And you know, for Singapore in particular, they don't have resources you know, for drinking water themselves. They have to import, including from Indonesia. So I think this is one way for them to save resources for drinking. So at least for drinking, maybe they still import, but for daily activities, they can use this kind of treatment. The other technology is the use of rainwater. You know that in some rural areas, this has been the practice, that they use, what do you call that, they collect rainwaters and somehow use it for activities. But the quality of the water tend to be very acid, right? So if it's not treated well, it will, first of all, destroy your teeth.
Your enamel, right?
Yeah.
It can, like,
see.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Ibu Dina, as we can see right now on the screen, that President Joko Widodo and his entourage, some of the leaders and the delegates are having a walk in the TAHURA mangrove forest in Nusa Dua in Bali. And I'm just wondering, what does this agenda actually symbolizes in this World Water Forum? Why do you think is the essence of this visit to TAHURA mangrove?
Mangrove has been, mangrove is, creates an ecosystem in the coastal areas. For those who never appreciate mangrove, they usually use, I mean, just being seen as the type of species of plants, you know, living in the coastal areas. But there's a very rich biodiversity. There are, if I'm not mistaken, 1,000 kinds of mangrove.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
From those, there are so big like that.
I see.
I've seen mangrove that looks like beans, you know, like spreading.
Yeah.
And then out of it, you can get beans just like the soybean. And people in some areas of Indonesia, like I visited a place, mangrove areas in Indramayu, for instance, they actually collect those beans and make it into tempe.
Oh,
So an alternative of you know,
from
food.
mangrove.
From mangrove.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
That's new.
That's new.
Okay.
Not many people talk about
Yeah.
it, which I hope
Okay.
during, you know, this kind of visit you can see. And then that's just from the vegetation. And because the vegetation, if it's well managed, and it can basically prevent the water from the sea to seep into the land areas.
Yes, to prevent sea abrasion.
Sea abrasion.
Yeah.
So it's a very safe mechanism to prevent natural disaster for people in the community areas. Flooding, and then abrasion, and then water seeping into the atau rob, ya, banjir rob, ya.
Yes.
The flooding from the sea. It can be stopped with that. And number 3, this kind of eco park usually can create income.
Ecotourism.
Ecotourism.
I see.
There are many kinds of what do you call that, crabs, small crabs, and then different kinds of fish that live in that mangrove areas. And then not only that, of course, this kind of visit, usually there are monkeys, there are birds,
Yes.
birds
It
watching.
creates a whole new ecosystem in the
Yes.
forest. Yeah.
It's beautiful, actually. I've been in Indramayu,
In
saw it.
Indramayu, right.
Yeah.
Maybe this is bigger, yeah, in Bali.
I believe we have also a mangrove forest here in Pantai Indah Kapuk.
Pantai
but
Indah
I think
Kapuk,
it's
yes.
not really popular so far, and I
Yeah.
think, we need to promote
We need to promote.
ecotourism more.
Yeah. And as I said, you know, if it's managed well, people can actually live or generate income from this activity.
Okay. It seems the president of the World Water Council is very interested in the mangrove forest. He's been listening attentively to the explanation. Right now, I think he's looking for more inspiration around the area. Because everything that they enjoy here, that they receive here, is supposed to be shared with all the countries in the world. So hopefully this can be a learning experience
And
for
it's
everybody involved.
not only challenging, but can be pricey to start a mangrove forest like this.
That's one of the challenges.
Oh.
Yeah,
Then.
that's one of the challenges.
Okay.
So I think
Is it expensive to buy the plant, or why is it pricey?
pricey because you need to like gradually plant,
I see.
and it's they said it's quite dangerous to go in the sea because usually abrasive area,
Yes.
they don't have any protection, right, from the water coming
Okay.
in. So when they first plant it, if you're not an expert, then
Yeah.
it may fail, you know, and accidents and all. So once you have a row of mangrove stand up, then you can build up, you know, another row after row. So that's usually the process. I'm
Okay.
sure some of these leaders also come from small islands.
Yes, that would be a great solution actually for island countries that are facing harsh effects of climate change. They are the ones who now are struggling with the effects of climate change, the rising sea levels. I think delegates from Fiji have said that they are very eager to learn how the Indonesian country as an archipelago have tackled all these challenges caused by climate change in water-related issues.
I think it's to be respected that Indonesian private sector, especially NGOs, has been participatory in doing this. A lot of initiatives like this spread out across the archipelago without public financing. So it comes from the people, from crowdfunding.
Okay.
So that's something that Indonesia is good at.
So we are actually quite aware of this, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, I think that is one of the ideas proposed by the Indonesian delegate, their idea of community-based solution and how different regions in Indonesia actually already have local wisdom, in tackling water-related issues. Like in Bali, so many local wisdoms have appeared in rituals and ceremonies, how they revere water so much. And like the mangrove forest, it has been here for quite a while. And then you have the Subak, the community-based water irrigation system. So hopefully Indonesia can be a source of inspiration for a lot of people attending the forum right now.
I agree.
And don't you think it's just a perfect place to pick Bali to be the host for the World Water Forum?
Easy and cheap.
Easy and cheap.
Cheap in terms of transit, you know, because lots of, if you want to have big attendance from different parts of the world, Bali is the place, you know.
Yeah. International flights all come in here, so no problem with that.
No problem at all.
And very experienced in hosting big events. We've had a lot of
yes.
experience with G20, ASEAN Summit, and now this. We know the drill already. So everybody's been saying how much fun they've been having so far at the WWF. I think the president also said this is the best WWF that he's attended in his 30 years in the World Water Council.
Wow.
Interesting.
Truly appreciative of the organization of the event
course.
by Indonesian government.
So what can we expect coming out? What kind of regulations, what kind of policies do we expect coming out of the World Water Forum this time?
I think
Anything that can be groundbreaking?
yeah, we well, honestly, some of these meeting, it's divided into two layers, right? Something that's more of a consensus building at the political level, and the more practical sharing among ministerial level officials. So I think what I expect from the more practical level is that they find a solution for more shared payment or burden sharing for the kind of technology, the kind of model of cooperation, starting from, you know, the drilling of water and then the management of waste in the dense area, densely populated area, and then case of Indonesia, for instance, even people in rural areas, the acceleration of hygiene sanitation remains quite slow. So if they can find out a mechanism to accelerate it with affordable costs, that would be excellent. At the international level, in terms of consensus, political consensus, I would hope really that not only, we shouldn't talk about awareness anymore. It's been too long. We talk about awareness and commitment. It's such an old story to
Even
say.
commitment.
Even commitment.
Even commitment.
It should
Okay.
already be committed by
Aw.
now.
Yeah.
Right?
It should be
Everything that has
committed.
been happening.
It should be committed. And knowing that many regions have their own initiatives, like I said, EU has their own green program, European at the eastern part also they have their program, Mekong has their own program. I think the key question now among the leaders is to make sure that the framework to achieve the SDG 6 can actually get its target on time.
Okay.
2030 is not that long
Yes.
from now, and the
It's
target
just around the corner.
it's just around the corner.
Yeah.
So if all the checklists there cannot be done, and the leaders somehow cannot secure a priority for water, all governments around the world needs to put water on the front of their campaign, election campaigns and all. I think that should be a great deal if they want to put it up and commits,
Show that you're serious.
Show you're serious.
Okay.
All
right.
countries attending. This is my part of my priority for the next few years when I become president or prime minister.
I
That will be-
see.
Yeah, yeah. Put it in your political statement.
Put it
as
in the
your
political
objective.
statement.
Okay.
Budina,
Budina.
I'm just curious, among all the countries joining World Water Forum, which country is actually doing a really good job leading in doing sustainable water?
Different kinds of, there's, what should I say? The progress has been, every country's tried to do their progress, but it has been limited. So I guess European Union, one of their strengths is they are quite strong in terms of developing technology. And they are very serious mandating their member states to contribute to a pool of funding so that all member states can secure water. And I guess they can do it because they have a power to do so. They have the European Union. The model of this cooperation, regional cooperation, is very much a union model, right?
Okay.
I wouldn't compare that to ASEAN, for instance, because we're just a different kind of cooperation. So I'm very careful in saying, comparing which one is better than the other one. It's quite challenging. And even between ASEAN member states, for instance, members in the member of ASEAN who are in the Greater Mekong area, they have more urgency to work together. And even if Indonesia jump in there, it will be awkward because we don't have geographic, relatedness with the issue. And even if you want to jump into the, whatever mechanism they have, it's also awkward. But the way to support all of this to progress, including ourselves as the island nations, Philippines also, is to make sure that the agenda of water is always up in the ASEAN. And not just at the technical level, but at the political level, it's also high.
Okay. So it's safe to say everybody's got something to learn from each other. Like the EU is about technology, and Indonesia is about the community-based solution. We mentioned about Subak, which is an indigenous Balinese traditional way of water irrigation. Now we're going to learn more even about Subak. Now water is essential, of course, to the lifeline of each living being on this earth. Across parts of the world, people conduct various different rites to show respect to this vital element. Specifically in Balinese tradition, in regard of the island being host for the 10th World Water Forum, the deep meaning of water's role in life is honored and inherited through a system locally known as Subak.
Kalau kita berbicara masalah upacara yang ada di Bali, itu adalah sebuah kegiatan bagaimana manusia senantiasa, khususnya umat Hindu, senantiasa dekat bersama Tuhan. Dalam kitab Bhagavad Gita dengan tegas dikatakan, Patram Pispam Palam Toyam Yome Bakte Prayas Jate Tata Ambakti Pahuran Asnami Paretat Mana. Sabda Tuhan, barang siapa yang mempersembahkan seteuyu air, sebiji buah, selai daun, setangkai bunga, jika dilanasi oleh hati yang tulus ikhlas, itu merupakan persembahan yang sangat utama.
Agama Hindu sering disebut agama tirta. Kenapa disebut agama tirta? Karena dalam setiap proses pelaksanaan beragama di agama Hindu tidak terlepas dari penggunaan air. Agama tirta itu mengajarkan bahwa siklus yang tidak terputus itu hanyalah air. Karena setiap proses upacara di Bali belumlah dianggap lengkap atau sempurna kalau belum mendapatkan tirta.
Balinese community dignify the presence of water sources is not only through ceremonies, but also the sustainable management of water resources for centuries. The awareness of the importance of water for life is what makes Balinese agrarian society highly honor water. It is inherited in a local wisdom system known as subak.
Jadi sampun ya ning gading mina kadi wangi ni penyapa kolwentan mina damoh dengan ketung wangi dengan ratus kadi angin mina kadi pina wati.
Subak adalah organisasi tradisional yang dimiliki oleh masyarakat. Dalam hal ini adalah khusus mengatur tentang tata cara irigasi ataupun kegiatan pertanian, khususnya adalah pertanian basah. Dalam subak, kita pada intinya tetap melaksanakan konsep ajaran Trita Karana. Keseimbangan atau harmonisasi antara manusia dengan Tuhan, harmonisasi antara manusia dengan manusia, harmonisasi antara manusia dengan alam, itu adalah bagian integral yang terpenting dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan subak ini. Air itu merupakan hal pokok dalam kehidupan subak itu sendiri. Warga subak itu biasanya tetap bekerjasama dengan warga subak itu sendiri, termasuk juga dengan pemerintah ataupun pihak-pihak lain itu melaksanakan kegiatan menjaga hulu. Di sana biasanya dilaksanakan penghijauan ataupun juga melarang penebangan kayu-kayu yang ada di sepanjang aliran sungai yang biasanya itu radiusnya ditentukan oleh perarem yang ditentukan oleh subak itu sendiri. Sehingga kalau ada kayu-kayu, terutama kayu-kayu yang bisa menahan air seperti kayu are, kayu lateng, bunut, bingin,
All right, back to the studio right here in TVRI World Studio 6. We are still, of course, reporting for the World Water Forum in Bali as the state leaders are still in the mangrove forest, enjoying the view, enjoying the conversation, as we are also enjoying our conversation with our guest, Ibu Dina Praptoraharja, PhD, International Relations Expert to Synergy Policies. Now, Ibu Dina, we've been talking a lot about real cases of water crisis all around the world. Now, in achieving solutions, of course, we want to also have tangible deliverables and, more importantly, policies and laws and regulation that can truly affect the people who are suffering. Maybe that is why one of the reasons Ibu Puan Maharani also attended the opening ceremony and also the high-level meeting, and he was also representing the Interparliamentary Union to make sure that all the resolutions that is achieved in this forum can be turned into policies. Now, what is actually the mechanism for that? Maybe you can tell us, based on previous experiences from the previous forums, the World Water Forums, did they manage to successfully turn into policies?
Bringing in legislatures to meetings like this is to inspire them about what others can do and what others have tried to do and what can be implemented in the case of Indonesia.
Okay.
So in terms of rules and regulations, how to manage stakeholders, the kinds of sanctions, if there will be sanctions, what's the point of enforcement if there's no sanctions?
True.
So through networking, through dialogues, even sidelines dialogue, informal meetings, in between meetings, leaders from the parliaments can also meet with all of these leaders of other countries. Hopefully, usually, I think they also invite civil society and then think tanks, experts,
Academia.
right? Academia, right? So it's a very robust opportunity for legislature, members of parliaments to dig in more information and try out their ideas. That's usually how it works.
It's a good mix of attendees to have at the forum.
Yes.
Now, Ibu Dina, you also mentioned just now that how the geopolitical tension is really affecting like the discussion also in the World Water Forum. But on the other hand, how can this water issues can bring unity among all these countries too, right?
Well, scarcity is for one. I think, like it or not, if the amount of water to the world is limited, then you have to start cooperating and really think about transnational cooperation instead of just, domestic management. Changing this mindset is what this kind of forum has been trying to do. Urgency among leaders to take this up as a transnational cooperation turns out requires time. It has been gradual and very much incremental. Again, because transnational cooperation is never easy. The UN has been trying to produce different kinds of reports whose purpose is to encourage countries to see it from a more macro perspective and to do research for member states, basically to show them, this is how you collect data, this is how you involve stakeholders. But at the end of the day, there's no one single formula, right, of successful cooperation, which is why every now and then a meeting like this is needed to not only refresh our mind about the goal, the common goal of having 100% access of water, drinking water for all, sanitation, as well as preventing different kinds of disaster from water. It becomes critical for everybody to start remembering that goal. So, that's the purpose of this kind of meeting.
Okay. So earlier today at the high-level meeting, there was also a video message from Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of United Nations. And he said, very interestingly, he compared the water crisis, the world water crisis, to climate change. In a sense that he mentioned, we took climate change for granted and we didn't act soon enough.
And now we are paying for it, right?
Now we are
That's what
paying
he
for
said.
climate change effects. that is happening throughout the world. And we cannot let that happen again with water crisis. Now, in your perspective, how urgent is this matter of water crisis?
Very, very urgent.
Before it becomes, is it actually too late right now? Do we have to like
For some countries, it's
pedal?
already a bit too late. For some countries, because some areas have now rivers have turned to desert, very dry, and some areas up north, around China areas, for instance, they already cry out loud because of the development of dams that causing dry areas around the dam. So because the link between climate change and water shortage is this. When climate change is getting worse, all the ice in the earth is basically melting.
Yeah.
But instead of this as a good resource for water,
More water for everyone. Yeah.
no.
It becomes another problem.
Becomes another problem.
Sea level
rising. And sea level rising creates different turbulence in the ocean,
Yes.
affecting the air,
It's disrupting everything.
disrupting
actually.
everything,
So-
and it causes natural disasters. Countries that are having more coastal areas will be first to experience the damage from that change. And then number two, because the water in the Arctic and the Antarctica have melted, the biodiversity have lost, and it creates a disruption of cycle of carbon sink.
Okay.
So the carbon that we create, every humankind also produce carbon, right? Carbon dioxide every time we breathe, and then our cars, our economic activities, they also produce carbon. With less biodiversity, less animal, less plants on the land as well as on the sea, because of the change of water level, creates more carbon in our atmosphere, which creates heat, and heats dry up all those water, but never return it back to the land.
That's the glass house effect.
Yes.
The global warming.
Glass
There's a
house
global-
effect.
In principle.
So if you don't do it fast enough and take this as a priority,
Yeah.
we are actually, what do you call it, grilling ourselves, roasting ourselves, slowly, or maybe fastly.
Fastly.
Because
Oh no.
the past few years has been getting hotter, right?
Hotter. And
has,
even
it
the
has.
past few months, we've been experiencing such bad heat waves
Yeah.
around Asia, right?
Bad heat waves.
That's
And
true.
some of the studies already mentioned that countries laying in the equator will experience the worst heat.
Okay, yeah,
And that's us.
That's us.
Us included.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So very urgent indeed.
Very
It's
urgent.
another existential crisis for humanity then to tackle, Budina.
Yes, and
Okay.
countries in the north, they
Yeah.
cannot just ignore this,
Yeah.
because we produce food, we produce, different kinds of biodiversity that's
Yes.
also useful for them, and don't forget humankind.
Yeah.
If we have, problems with the environment, there will be migration.
Yeah.
That's another issue that's also
Yeah.
highlighted usually in the World Water Forum. Yeah, migration of
It's
people.
all interrelated.
It's all
somehow.
interrelated in a
Yes.
scary manner.
Yeah.
And migration has been a big issue in Europe.
Yes.
Actually, it's been a political issue.
Yes.
So yeah, they need to address that as well.
They need to address that, because if people naturally will
Yeah.
look for places with water.
Yeah.
If they didn't get it, then they move somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's their right, right?
Yes, of course. So if we could probably switch gear for now, because one of the biggest headlines coming out of the WWF is Elon Musk attending the forum. He was there at the opening ceremony, actually gave the first speech, Louisa, if you remember. It was more of an impromptu speech, probably, but it was really exciting to have him there because he is such, a well-known figure.
Yeah.
And we all know that he's here also to launch Starlink, the internet provider that will give remote access in Indonesia, more access to the internet. Now, I want to just get your take on this, because there's like a lot of opinions out there commenting on the attendance of Elon Musk. Some people are saying, we don't need Starlink, we need Waterlink. What's Starlink got to do with this? But I'm curious to know about your perspective.
Well, internet, what do you call that? Internet life
Yeah.
has been part of modern activities, And to some people, we can say, you know, we don't need internet. But for most people, internet is actually creating certain kind of efficiency for economic activities. Let me give you an example in the Middle East, for instance. It's interesting, right? I know all of this because I've observed something. So when I was invited to this, talk, I was recharging all of that memory.
It's coming back to you
it's
right now.
It's coming back to me. All of this in the Middle East, Israel, for instance, is developing a technology where they can monitor the drip of water. Oh, wow. That's using internet.
Oh,
okay. So my first impression, my first thought when I was invited to Middle East, Israel, Palestine, I was thinking, well, war zone area, it must be very dry, very, barren and ugly, right? No, it was lots of roses, and I was shocked to know later on, I browsed, they produce roses, one of the, after Dutch, Netherlands, they produce roses. So the question is, how do they do that? Technology.
I see.
So water doesn't have to be abundant, but you manage with technology, so it gets the drip and the vitamins needed at the certain time. Yes. So you regulate the drip every now and then. And some countries like Singapore has been using it. Thailand, Vietnam, in Southeast Asia, they buy that kind of technology. I'm not saying, I'm not talking too much about Israel here. I'm just using this as an example
of how internet can be actually useful for water management.
So it's still related to have Elon Musk at the World Water Forum.
And Elon Musk appear in Gaza too, right? So
somehow. Now, as we are seeing the live feed from Bali, we are seeing that the delegates are now leaving the mangrove forest, the Tahura mangrove forest. I'm sure they're now going back to their respective hotels to get a little bit of rest before
after
continuing.
Such a long day today.
They started very early in the morning, and they also had a long night last night with the gala dinner. But it's going to be a busy week for them at Nusa Dua, Bali, as they continue.
And they will be attending, there are like 200 forums happening.
More than 200 forums.
More than 200 forums
200
happening for the rest of the week.
Yes.
And lots of water talk.
Yes, covering
full schedule.
Full schedule. Yeah, there are 6 sub-themes of the 10th World Water Forum to be covered, from water as natural resources, natural disaster mitigation. Financing is also a big issue. And then you also have hydro diplomacy. That is one keyword that is repeatedly used in this forum, hydro diplomacy and hydropolitics. And of course, also a lot of issues that is in relation to how countries can cooperate and collaborate in tackling these issues.
And what is also mentioned this morning, Ibu Dina, was the president of the World Water Council, Louis Fauchon. He mentioned that we all need to be water warriors. In this time of, in your opinion, as individuals, can we really make a difference? What can we do in terms of sustaining water and managing water in our daily lives?
Yes, do not waste water.
As simple as that.
As simple as that. And I think some buildings, if we have more access to capital and resources, be it because we manage an apartment, or maybe we have buildings that we take care of, think about switching some of the water needs for that building into something that there's a way so that the water that's dirtier, like for the flushing of toilets, they use it from treated water. So you only use clean water for very strict use of drinking or bathing. Hotels, for instance, I think we need to start thinking how they can manage better water. And nowadays,
you know how people go to hotels just to take a hot bath?
Hot bath and then lay down there every day.
Every day.
Every day. I think the fact that some hotels now eliminate bathtub, it's actually a good start.
Wow.
Because
as a sign of their concern for the environment, not to waste water,
not to waste
needlessly.
water needlessly. And then toilet flush, for instance, there are usually now 2 buttons, right?
Yeah.
For
Okay.
the less water, the more eco-friendly, and the
Okay.
bigger ones if you need one. So, start thinking about adapting your household
Okay.
needs.
So simple things, just
Simple
simple
things.
tasks,
Simple tasks.
everyday tasks.
How many times do we need to bath in a day?
In a day, 3 times.
Still 3 times. It's really hot right now in Jakarta. I still need my shower regularly.
Fair enough.
Okay, there's another issue that's been quite polarizing in opinions, Budina, if I can get your take on it, and that is the privatization of public water access. What do you think of that? Some people are for it, some people are against it. What do you think?
Well, those who are for it usually think about better management and better technology that can be used, right?
Yeah.
Well, we cannot deny that in the past, when it was only public provided, the management is taking it for granted. They don't change the pipes, they don't give good service and all.
Not well maintained.
And not well maintained. So it's a process, I think. In some countries, they privatized the water, but they regulate them closely.
Okay.
And they can be more than one water company, private water company providing, so that among them they would compete to get what they want. So long as I think the key there is to convince the business sectors that this is not about blackmailing private sectors, right?
Okay.
Because water is essential.
Yes.
It's once you if you put too tight of a regulation, the company would die down. But if it's too much thriving, then there will be accusation of corruption or nepotism or something, right? Because everybody is going to access water. It can be very lucrative business as well.
Okay.
So it's finding the right balance and transparency, accountability. I guess.
So again, a monitoring body would be needed to make sure
we have a lot of like consumer consumer report, and then the ombudsman, and then the OJK if it's about the financing. I think we have all those tools.
So it is feasible.
It's feasible. It's just a matter of revisiting and think about better
and political commitment.
Political commitment.
All right. Now, Ibu Dina, as a closing statement, we would like to have your hopes and expectation.
Yeah.
What can we expect coming out from the World Water Forum?
I'm always concerned about those who are left behind. And this is one of the very first goal of World Water Forum organized by the United Nations. Since the very beginning, the concern is about the inequality, about the lack of access that is very tough to catch up for those left behind. If you wish for them to change their mindset on their own and to improve their capacity on their own, it's just wishful thinking, it's not going to happen. So a lot of efforts needs to be done by the government because they are the one with the capacity to manage and the responsibility to take care of the society. But more and more, because we understand how important it is to engage all stakeholders, and it has been 10 years we try this through the World Water Forum, there should be a more fixed model that we can use and declare, let's use this variety of model, and they declare maybe 5 models or 3 models or something, and then go for the SDGs target, try to achieve it. So it's more concrete.
Okay. Ibu Dina Praptora Harja, PhD, International Relations Expert to Synergy Policies. Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Ibu
our
Dina.
eye-opening conversation.
I've learned so much
from you.
Always fun. Thank you.
So as the state leaders have left the Tahura mangrove forest, it is now our time to leave the studio and end our special report. Thank you so much for joining us. Please continue to watch TVRI World for our continuous coverage of the World Water Forum happening in Bali. But for now, we bid you adieu. I'm Siska Becker.
And I'm Luisa Kusnandar. Thank you for watching our special report, and we'll see you again next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.